Today we have news of epic performance for the new Apple iPhone 14, and I'll be sharing the details right after this. So today we've got news of improved performance to the iPhone 14 Pro models, along with more confirmations of the whole range. Before we get started though, like the video if you're a fan of Apple. Let me know in the comments who out there is waiting for the iPhone 14, and if you haven't already, then hit subscribe now so you don't miss a thing in the future. So first story of the day, we've got some worrying news that an iPhone 14 production facility was forced into a 7-day lockdown, which has created many fears of delays. Now the production plant is in Shenzhen and it was forced to do a closed loop lockdown, and this means that only the employees that actually live on site are now able to work. Now there's no mention on delays to the iPhone 14 production yet, and to be honest, we've heard plenty of news that Apple are doing things ahead of the usual schedule in preparation for any issues like this. We also have news from reliable analyst Ming-Chi Kuo that during Apple's quality control tests, it's been discovered that some of the rear lenses are suffering from a coating crack. Now thankfully, the impact on the iPhone 14 shipments is still going to be minimal, thanks to new suppliers stepping in to address the issue. Now according to Ming-Chi Kuo, Apple has transferred around 10 million of the lens orders to a new supplier, Largan, so there aren't going to be any delays. Next up, we've got more confirmations that the iPhone 14 models are actually going to use different chipsets across the range, which is not normally the case for the latest iPhones. We had many rumors early on, and it now seems very likely that this is going to be the case. The iPhone 14 and then the iPhone 14 Max are going to be using last year's A15 chipset, although it may be slightly modified or renamed. Then the iPhone 14 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max are going to use the new A16 Bionic. The A16 is still going to be a 5nm chipset, the same as last year's, but it's going to be produced on a new 5nm process node called N4P, and it's expected to bring an 11% improvement in performance and then a 22% improvement in the energy efficiency. Now while it may be disappointing to hear that some of the iPhone 14s are going to have the same chipset as last year's phone, it is sort of good news for iPhone 13 users. You were previously only guaranteed 5 years of software updates, but with the new phones using the same chipset, then it likely means a guarantee of 6 years. Now next up, we've got news that the iPhone 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max are going to come with even better performance thanks to newer and faster memory. Now last year's models came with 6GB of RAM, and while the iPhone 14 Pro models are still going to come with the 6GB, it is actually much better RAM. While the previous models were using LPDDR4X, the iPhone 14 Pro as well as the 14 Pro Max are going to be using LPDDR5 memory, and this is up to 1.5 times faster. We also have news that while last year's non-Pro models only had 4GB of RAM, the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Max will in fact have 6GB, the same as the Pros, but they're going to be using the older LPDDR4X memory. Now with a phone that already has an impressive chipset, the introduction of faster memory is going to keep it running smoother for longer and help future-proof the device. Next up, we have many reports to say that there are production issues with the new iPhone 14 Max, so we may also be seeing this as a later date than the rest of the phones. Now personally, I think the iPhone 14 Max is going to be a popular choice because it allows those who want a larger phone to get one without paying the huge price tag of the iPhone 14 Pro Max. It's also going to be interesting to see how the standard iPhone 14 is marketed, as the only real difference between last year's model is an extra 2GB of RAM, but of course marketing is one of Apple's specialties and something they do very well. Now for those of you excited for the iPhone 14 though, we're now going to run through the full specs, design and the pricing for each model in the range. For my regular viewers, you guys have seen this, so just skip on to the next video, but if you are new here, then hit subscribe now and we'll get right into it. To start with, the new entry-level model is going to be the iPhone 14. With the iPhone 14, we get a 6.1-inch Super Retina OLED display. It's expected to be an 1170 by 2532 resolution, and while many sources claim it's a 90Hz display, there is a chance that it could still be 60Hz. On the front, we'll be getting a 12-megapixel selfie camera, but unlike the Pro models, we will have a notch instead of a punch-hole camera. On the rear, it's looking like a dual camera setup, and while early rumors suggested a LiDAR scanner, that's unfortunately not going to be the case. The dual camera setup is going to consist of a wide angle and an ultra wide camera, and the phone is going to be powered by the A15 Bionic that we saw last year, although it will likely be modified slightly and it may still come under an A16 model name. It's going to be coming with 6GB of RAM and a choice of 128, 256 or 512 storage. The phone will be powered by a 3279 mAh battery with improved fast charging, likely to be around 25 watts. It's expected to support both wireless and reverse wireless charging, and it's also expected to come with 5G, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2 and ultra-wideband support. It will of course ship with the new iOS 16. When it comes to pricing, we are expecting a slight increase due to higher component costs, so we're expecting the base model to start from $899. Now next up, we've got the iPhone 14 Pro. With the iPhone 14 Pro, we get a 6.1-inch ProMotion OLED display. It's a 120Hz LTPO display with a resolution of 1170 by 2532, which gives us 440 pixels per inch. On the front, we get another 12-megapixel wide-angle camera with Face ID sensors embedded in the display. On the rear, we get a triple camera setup consisting of a 48-megapixel wide-angle as the primary, a 12-megapixel ultra-wide and a 12-megapixel telephoto, and of course we get the additional LiDAR scanner. The phone is going to be powered by the A16 Bionic, and it's expected that it's going to come with a choice of 8GB of RAM, 128, 256, 512 and 1TB of storage. The phone's going to be powered by a 3240 mAh battery with improved fast charging, likely to be 25 watts. It's expected to support both wireless and reverse wireless charging, and it's also expected to come with 5G, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2 and ultra-wideband support. It's going to ship with iOS 16, and the base model of the iPhone 14 Pro is expected to start from $1,099. So next up, we've got the new edition, which is the iPhone 14 Max. The iPhone 14 Max is expected to come with a 6.7-inch Super Retina OLED display. It's coming with a resolution of 1284 by 2778, and while some sources are claiming it's a 90Hz display, there is still a chance it could be a 60Hz panel. On the front, we get a 12-megapixel selfie camera, and on this model we also have a notch. And then on the rear, we get a 12-megapixel wide angle as the primary and another 12-megapixel ultra-wide, but unfortunately there will not be a LiDAR scanner. The phone is going to be powered by last year's A15 Bionic, although it will be slightly modified, and they could still market it as the A16 chipset. The phone comes with 6GB of RAM and a choice of 128, 256 or 512 gigs of internal storage. The iPhone 14 Max is going to be powered by a 4352 mAh battery, again with fast charging likely to be 25 watts. It's expected to support both wireless and reverse wireless charging, and it's also going to come with 5G, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2 and ultra-wideband support. Of course, it's going to be shipping with iOS 16. When it comes to pricing, we expect the iPhone 14 Max to start from $999. Now finally, we've got the top-end model, the iPhone 14 Pro Max. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is coming with a 6.7-inch ProMotion OLED display. We're expecting a 120Hz LTPO display with a resolution of 1284 by 2778, giving us 458 pixels per inch. On the front, we get a 12-megapixel punch-hole selfie camera with Face ID under the display, and then on the rear it's the triple camera setup and a LiDAR scanner. The triple camera consists of a 48-megapixel wide angle, a 12-megapixel ultra-wide and a 12-megapixel telephoto. The phone's going to be powered by the A16 Bionic, and it's expected that it's going to come with a choice of 8GB of RAM, 128, 256, 512 or 1TB storage. The phone's going to be powered by a 4352 mAh battery with improved fast charging, likely to be 25 watts, and again it's likely to support both wireless and reverse wireless charging. It's expected to come with 5G, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2 and ultra-wideband support, and it will of course ship with iOS 16. The base model of the iPhone 14 Pro Max is expected to launch from $1,199, and of course the higher storage variants will cost more. So overall, the iPhone 14 is looking incredible, and it's great to finally see some drastic design changes. In terms of the hardware, they've already got a good setup going, so focusing on design is a good move. Of course, the iPhone 14 series is going to be launching in September 22, and as more and more leaks come in, I'll continue to share them as they do. As always though, I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments, so who out there is excited for the Apple iPhone 14 and what model are you waiting for? But thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, smash a thumbs up. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down twice, and I'll see you guys in the next one.